It's time for another episode of Love, Marriage, and Fantasy. I am Star Claiborne.
And I am Anton Lenara Claiborne. We are your global relationship strategists.
We live our marriage on the guided principle no one or no thing.
So take some time, listen as we make sense of all of it. In this episode, we're gonna talk about being at the club and being selfish, and we're gonna talk about shaking the money and spreading the money. So, um, during this discussion, I've realized that there really shouldn't be anything that should make the couple feel like uh, one deserves more time for self care than the other one. And if they practice or if they approach self care from that perspective, I think when the time comes for them to spend money, go to the club, have fun with their friends, do the things that help them to feel like an individual, it will be easier for them to have a discussion about it.
Absolutely.
But I do have a question though, and this actually just came to mind because one thing we didn't discuss, and this one thing I'm about to mention, it it it's it's always going to surface at some point because it's a part of life. We didn't discuss the self self care on the level of pleasure. That's the part we didn't discuss.
Okay.
And I think it needs to be discussed by us because some of our listeners were probably waiting for us to address that part of it, and because it's a part of life. Everyone's everyone's definition of pleasure is different. I know we talked about doing things that you like to do and doing things that make you happy. Some people are highly sexual people, and to them, their self care is making sure that they experience pleasure daily. So then, if you have that one person who lives their life like that, but the other person doesn't, I mean, they like to experience pleasure as well, but not as often as their partner. How would they address that? How would they deal with that? Because having a discussion on that is not going to be as easy as having a discussion on, you know, who's going to have what money to go out and have fun with this weekend. That's easier than saying, okay, you know, what are you going to go out and do, or what are we going to go out and do, for pleasure?
So when it comes to the sexual pleasure, first let me say this: that's a whole nother podcast.
It could be.
It is another podcast because when you think about self-care, we're talking about what you need to discuss. It's a discussion. Everything, no matter if it's sexual pleasure, personal, it doesn't matter. It all comes down to a discussion. Now, when you say how do you handle that, you're getting into another dimension of what are the things that need to be addressed in order for them to make sure that both parties are satisfied.
Okay, well let me just put this out.
And we can address those. We can talk about it.
Well, I was just gonna put this one thing out there because some people find pleasure in going out and just being amongst. Well, let me speak from a male's perspective. Some men find pleasure in just going out and being amongst the fellas, right? And just doing what men do, whether that's conversing with women, talking trash to them is what I mean. Well, maybe I should say talking trash, but what do they call it? Not flirting, but what's it called when the word is right there on my phone. when
Us women are curious to know what you call it.
when a woman is walking down the street and a bunch of men are like, "Hey, how you doing? What's up, baby? How you? What? If there's a term and it's right there. It's just not coming to me right now. But you
But
know
when
what I'm
they do
talking
that,
about, right? So some men find pleasure in doing that, and so to him that would be a form of pleasure. However, if his significant other found out that that's what he was doing as one of his forms of self care, that could turn into an issue.
it could.
But why is the question?
I'll tell you why. So okay, let's start with again.
And before you say that, and this is starting to feel like I'm interviewing you. But
it's okay. You can interview me because I'm going to tell you. No, I'm gonna tell you I'll tell you from my personal perspective and what I think from other women.
Okay.
Right?
But this also reminds me of how you'll have and I'm going to place it from try and look at this from a woman's perspective, because I know women, they tend to go online and they're liking pictures of guys, and that's pretty much this, guys that they find attractive, right? They're liking the pictures, giving them hearts and everything. That's the same thing that a group of men might do.
Are they random or are they celebrities?
Just random.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I agree.
Okay,
do.
right.
They probably
But
do.
that's the same thing as a group of men being, maybe at a cafe where they're eating on the sidewalk, and you got, a small group of women walking past, and they're like, "Hey, how y'all doing? Come on over here, let's talk for a while," or whatever. Y'all are so beautiful, so sexy, and all that stuff. That's the equivalent of that is a woman being online and she see a picture of a cute guy and she likes that picture, right?
Okay.
So how would that be addressed, or how do you think it should be addressed?
Again, if you know that's something that you like to do, it needs to be told to your partner, right? I mean, you need to tell your partner what you like to do. But let me say this: when you talk about, okay, you want to hang out with the fellas and you want to go be with them, and you're out there hollering at the women, even though your intentions are not to get with them. So so let's start with the avenue of none of us are perfect. That's number one.
Okay.
No one is perfect. Number two, and I'm saying this especially to the women.
Wait a minute.
Will you let me answer your question?
Wait.
You're not letting me answer your question.
I am, but listen. Remember when you were single though? Did you used to do anything like that?
I never would go and just randomly heart and like just random guy photos.
Okay.
That wasn't my thing.
All right.
But I'm sure it happens. Would I like a celebrity that was very attractive? Absolutely. Would I make a comment? Yes.
That's the same
and I still do it. But I'm just saying.
That's the same thing.
It's not the same thing. They're not random. We kind of know them through television, right? But will you let me say what I'm about to say, please? Because I'm kind of in your defense if you let me finish.
All right, go ahead.
I'm on the male's defense right now a little bit, okay? So let me get it out. All right. So what I was trying to get at is for the women, you have to understand that we are not perfect, they are not perfect. And I am speaking specifically to the women right now because more than likely it's the women who are going to get much more jealous per se than the men, okay? And if the men do get jealous, they try to hold it in, but that's another conversation for another day. But the biggest thing is stop telling your man that he can't look at another woman when you're looking at other men. It is natural. It is within us. We look. Respect your relationship. Know what those boundaries are in your relationship. Now, as far as being out there and just hollering at other women, here's my biggest concern. It's not an issue. It's a concern. You have to trust that the person you're with knows their limitations, because men are sexual, but we know the women fool you sometimes. They can get just as sexual as a man.
Yes.
The problem is women are not going to read that as, oh, he's just out here just trying to have a little bit of fun with me with this conversation. They are going to read that we as women, when you start flirting with us, because technically that's flirting. Okay, come on over here, let's talk, let's do that. That's flirting. You're bringing them into your space. When you start flirting with a woman, our thought process is you're ready to talk to us, not just to be right here and having this conversation. You're just not here just to have a conversation with me. So the question is, does that woman, it then becomes, do we trust that woman, not do we trust our man? Because a woman, they can take it the wrong way and they can continue to pursue. Just like men and women, we're both the same type of creature. We can hear the word, no, we were just here just trying to have some fun. You can hear that as a man, I can hear that as a woman. But it doesn't mean that that man or that woman that you're talking to is going to stop pressuring.
Right.
If you're married, now let's talk about societal views and the view from the person that you're with. Is that a sign of disrespect? Now this woman is saying to herself, oh, I got him. And look, he's married. Right? Not that it's going to do her any good, because if you go and be with her, guess what's going to happen? Same thing going to happen. You're going to go and be with somebody else while you with her. So, right? So people don't think like that.
Right.
But the point is, do I find it disrespectful, right? If you're talking to this person, as they're finding it, as they're in their mind, they're just all gloating about this, or am I more concerned about society? And that's a conversation to be had. Are you concerned about society's views, or do you know that this is what your spouse is doing and you're okay with it, right? So it comes from society too. What has society placed on us women? Like, there's not a whole lot women can get away with without being called out of their name or said that this is wrong or we shouldn't do this and we're being disrespected and he doesn't love us and he doesn't care about us. But there's a lot that you men can do, right? And it's cool. It's cool. You're not going to call out your name. You're not going to be thrown all over social media. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's what's supposed to be done. So when you're talking about that, again, that's a conversation to be had. You need to know what your woman's views are about that situation before you just say, I'm in a relationship and this is what I'm going to do. And you need to have a purpose for it. Like, okay, it makes you feel good. How?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, Star. You ready for another social media break?
Social media break time. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Starting the timer right now. So I found this on Facebook.
Okay.
And it's a question saying, you and your spouse are at home. Do you tell your spouse where you are going when you leave the house? Yes or no? And then if you do tell, do you give any details of where you're going?
Me being who I am, absolutely. But I mean, the reason I tell, but I think that it's important to tell your spouse where you're going. It's not about checking in and them anybody trying to be possessive. For me, one, I feel it's a level of respect for the relationship. But not only that, I mean, what if something happens?
True.
Someone needs to always know where you are.
Right. Well, I do that part. I do tell you, where I'm going.
Yes.
And that way, like you said, you'll know where I'm at.
Yeah. So I think it's very important that you do have that level of respect. So, yes, absolutely.
But, I mean, if you feel as though you don't need to share that information, then maybe that's okay with your partner.
It needs to be a communication.
Right. Y'all should have that discussion, though.
Yeah.
That both of y'all agree. So both of you will agree on it. What did you find?
This is a question that came across, and I thought it was interesting. Is it wrong to ask my partner to take an HIV test with me?
Yikes. Is it wrong?
No.
I wouldn't say that it's wrong, because there's nothing wrong with asking the question.
Absolutely. I don't think it's wrong to ask your partner to take any STD test with you. But I think you need to educate yourself because a lot of people don't realize that HIV won't show up and it may not show up
Right.
for, I think it's like up to 10 years. I'm not sure if that's changed over the years.
Well, a lot of the STIs are like that,
Yeah,
where they don't show up immediately on the test.
right.
So asking wouldn't be a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. Just make sure you definitely are educating yourself on when those signs and symptoms may show.
Right, because you want to take care of your health. You know, even if your partner isn't taking their health seriously, you should take your own health seriously.
Right, and as you're going through being with that person, you know, you can't think, well, we took a test, it was negative, and then a year later it's positive, so now you're thinking that that person cheated on you or something when it could have happened before you got together, you know, before you decided to take that step. So
that's the science hadn't shown them on the test.
But if that's what makes you comfortable, you do what makes you comfortable, and
ask that question.
I think it's, you know, the reaction of the other person will let you know whether or not you even want to be with the person. The way that they react.
All right, well, that's it, y'all. We hope you got something from this social media break. Let's get back into the discussion. You know, this whole discussion just brings to mind how, not how, but why there should be an understanding that sets clear guidelines regarding self-care, and more specifically, the fun that a person has for their self-care. And I think those guidelines would be helpful if you have somebody who likes to go to the club, right? And they like to stay out late. They're not doing anything to be, well, let me rephrase. They're not doing anything to try to, you know, get laid. They're just going out having fun, right? Are they dancing? Yes, they're dancing. But their partner is back home because their partner doesn't like going to the club. All right, so then the understanding that will need to be established so that there will be some clear guidelines is, well, I think this is the understanding that should be established. Whatever you do in that club when you're out there, it stays there. When you come back home, your mind shouldn't be on what you were doing in the club and what happened, you know, this person you were talking to in the club and all of that. Basically, it should have that. You should have that mindset of, you know, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right, but the problem with that is
but I was going to say it would be a little bit difficult to have that mindset if you don't discuss that early on.
If you don't discuss it, and not only that, well, right, the main part is discussing it so that what I'm about to say doesn't happen. You can go to the club. You could be out there with your boys. Y'all can have a group of women around you flocking because it happens. I mean, if I go to the club with my girls, okay, there might be some dudes that come around us and start talking to us. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go home with him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you don't even, let me say this. Someone you know or someone I know may see one of us, may see this occurring, and it's only them seeing it, so then it gets back to you or it gets back to me, and we haven't had this discussion, right? So now, guess what? There's a whole nother perception.
True.
Because now, should I trust my girl or should I trust him?
But there shouldn't be a whole nother perception if
point.
You have that
discussion. That's the point that I'm making. You got to have that discussion. You got to have that discussion. And we all know, I mean, we know when you go out somewhere that, especially in a club, you could just be sitting there chilling and a girl can walk up to you.
Right.
I could just be sitting there chilling. A guy can walk up to me. I can technically be brushing him off, but somebody see that, they have no idea what's going on.
Right.
People who know us probably say, they usually don't even go to the club.
Right.
So what are they doing in the club? But this may be something that we've already talked about where it's like, you know what? I think I want to try, let me just go check it out. They don't know we've had that conversation, but because you've had that conversation, when that other person comes to you, you already know we're good.
Right. We're good.
Back up. Like, just no worries. We good over here.
Right.
And let them move on. But again, I think the biggest thing is with women, there is a lot of pressure on women because we are given titles just by the most minute things. We're not allowed to be as free as men when it comes to doing certain things because society, we're everything.
But y'all have control over that, though. I mean, on an individual level, you have control of that because if you put yourself out in public as that person who feels I can do whatever I want to do, and I'm not going to let anyone else tell me that I can't, then people will start to understand your actions when they see them.
That comes
without having to talk to you because they will know that you're not that person.
That comes with a lot of confidence, and just from being a coach and coaching women and going through the process with women, a lot of women lack confidence due to things that have happened in their past. So it's easier said than done when you say a woman can control it. We can. We have that power, but we lack the confidence to push it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yes, we have it, but the confidence is not there. And it's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate thing, but a lot of women and men, not saying that one or the other doesn't need to realize when they need help with things, but a lot of women run from the fact that they are not confident, and not being confident alone stops them from taking the next level to get help.
So then that is definitely one thing that we should, discuss concerning self-care, because confidence, no, seriously, confidence plays a huge part in everything, all of these topics that we just discussed, especially when you look at the most basic things of hygiene. Poor hygiene can affect your self-confidence, whereas
self-confidence can affect your hygiene.
Yes.
Lack of
self-confidence can affect your hygiene.
Yes.
Right. So then if we go back to that, the most basic thing of self-care, and bring it up to what we were just talking about as far as being an individual and setting or putting your standards on display for others to see so that they'll know you don't do those type of things they may think you're trying to do, so that they'll understand that you're not the person who is lacking in confidence. You're free to do whatever you want to do. Right. So when you place those two extremes out there, where you have the basic with the hygiene, and then you have the other extreme where you have the self-confidence, where you're putting your standards on display. At what point do you think the lack of confidence could come in if that confidence was? I'm sorry. Let me reword what I'm saying. Where do you think self-confidence can enter a person's life who has always had self-confidence since they were learning the most basics of self-care, which is hygiene? How could an issue of confidence creep into? Yes. How could an issue how could a confidence issue enter the mind of a person who has always had high self-confidence? How could that happen? Because if I know that a part of my self-care involves how I see myself.
Right.
I see myself as a confident person. I always have since I was, able to bathe myself.
Right.
Now I'm an adult.
Mm-hmm.
How could someone come to me and shake my confidence, make me feel like, my confidence, my self confidence is artificial? And I'm asking that question because I have seen people who I thought were very confident, but something happened and they came to me and said, "Yeah, I just kind of lost my confidence for a second." How does that happen?
Okay. So, one of the biggest things that I've found is people are, when you talk about self confidence, the biggest question that needs to be asked are you 100% self confident? Because there are different areas of your life that you have self confidence. So, if you can be going through, as you're growing up, you have this self confidence, you've gone through some things and you've built self confidence, but you haven't realized that it's only in certain areas of your life. If something happens currently that takes you back to your past of something that happened, that alone can have you to start questioning whether or not you have confidence in that area. And then, unfortunately, sometimes it can trickle down into the areas where you had self confidence. Because when you initially start feeling that energy, you're kind of opening yourself up to more of it around you. Because you start losing the confidence of the other things that you have in you. So the biggest thing is, I guess, when we're talking about self confidence, what's coming to my mind right now is, if you're a confident person, know what areas of life you're confident in, and try to figure out those things that you're not and work on that. But when you feel something happening, because you can feel the shift happening inside of you, we just ignore it. When you feel that shift happening, you need to try to consciously make sure that you're not allowing other people to interfere in that space while you're going through that process of dealing with that, because it's automatically going to bring a lot of negative energy to you, and then you may start flocking into that, and then you start losing your confidence because now you're hanging around the wrong people, or you realize you're at this job where there's nothing but negative people that you thought were positive people, and now something has come to your mind that has opened you up to something else and some other level of these people here. Because when you start feeling things, you start seeing things. When things start happening in you, you start seeing things and noticing things out externally. So you have to be conscious of that and be able to block some of that so that you can work on yourself as soon as you feel the shift happening.
Okay. And that will help with maintaining your self-care on every level.
Yes.
Because you will be totally aware of the things that the things that are threatening your emotional stability.
But let's not forget, what do you need to do? What's the biggest thing you need to do when you realize that's happening and you've always been confident, and we're talking about his care versus her self-care? That's a discussion for you and your spouse and your mate to have. You need to talk to your partner that you're feeling something.
Right.
You may now need more than ever that self-care time, that time to be alone, or you may need them to understand that something is happening and you may not know what's happening. So to be patient with you, that you're trying to figure things out, right? So you got to relay that back to your partner. When you're going through something internally, you don't have to be super detailed as to what's going on, but you need to make it known something is happening.
Right. And that would help that could help make it easy for your partner to assist you in some way.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap this up. I think that was a good discussion on self-care.
It was.
It was.
And I really hope that, some of you have gained some true nuggets from this conversation, because, like I said in the beginning, there's different levels to it. You have your most basic, Don't
of
smell.
self-care.
Don't smell. Right? Make sure you smell good. Make sure you look good. But then you have the higher level of self-care of, making sure that you're mentally, you're really taking care of your mind, taking care of yourself, and you're happy.
You're emotionally.
You're emotionally.
You're
together.
emotionally stable.
Yeah.
And your psyche stays under your control. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, like Star said, we hope we've said something that helps you in some way. We will see y'all or talk to y'all. I'm so used to doing videos. We will see y'all or talk to y'all.
Y'all will hear us.
Right. Y'all will hear us
on the next podcast
of Love, Marriage, and Fantasy. That wraps it up for another episode of Love, Marriage, and Fantasy.
Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Claiborne Coaching. Download the podcast Love, Marriage, and Fantasy, and look us up on Facebook at Claiborne Coaching.
All right, so we'll see you next time.